A billionaire sat alone in a glass-walled interrogation room, his expensive suit rumpled, silver cufflinks glinting in the cold white light. Thick steel handcuffs locked his wrists to the table. His eyes, sharp and blue, stared into the far corner, hollowed by sleeplessness and shock. Across the mirrored glass, unseen officers watched, whispering rumors. How did the world's youngest self-made CEO end up like this? On the table before him, a faded photograph showed a little girl, no older than 5, with tangled hair and a radiant, innocent smile. The billionaire's jaw clenched, tears slipping down his face, silent and raw. An invisible voice echoed through his memory, not heard in decades. He built an empire. But he couldn't save her. Sirens wailed faintly outside, blurring with the memory's pain. The billionaire inhaled shakily, knuckles whitening as the past and present crashed in his mind. A child's voice echoed in his head. "Will you always protect me?" Shadows of regret crept across his face. The world thought they knew him, a ruthless mogul who devoured his rivals. But here, stripped of everything, he was only a brother facing the one truth he could never conquer. No names. No explanations. Only the paradox, power shattered by love's deepest failure. The city's skyline shimmered in the pre-dawn haze, towers of glass and steel rising above a restless world that never slept. High atop the tallest building, a sprawling executive office glowed with artificial light, fighting back the darkness beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Inside, the billionaire slumped in an ergonomic leather chair, head bowed, hands pressed to his temples as if trying to hold together a mind breaking under pressure. He was alone, utterly exposed in his kingdom of marble and chrome. Tears streaked his cheeks, but his reflection on the glass showed only the hard mask the world knew. Powerful, untouchable. Headlines screamed from a scattered magazine. Times cover his own face beneath the headline, King of Ambition. The man's shoulders trembled as memories of a lost childhood returned unbidden, cutting deeper than any business betrayal. The world could see the empire but not the emptiness at its heart. In this silent, sterile sanctuary, there was no victory, only the echo of a promise broken long ago. The city's heartbeat pulsed below, unaware of the silent collapse happening above it. Here, his empire was nothing more than glass, reflection, and regret. Somewhere deep inside the billionaire's mind, memory blurred with reality. He remembered holding his little sister's hand at dusk in a cramped apartment, promising to protect her forever. Even as a child, he'd known the world could be cruel. He'd watched his parents struggle, watched hope fade from their eyes, and vowed never to let weakness swallow him. Now, at the top of the world, every ruthless move, every enemy crushed, every sleepless night, felt hollow in the face of that old promise. His empire was built on sacrifice, his own childhood, his humanity, and perhaps the only family he'd ever loved. As dawn crept over the city, the billionaire clung to the memory of her laughter, wondering where she was, if she remembered him, if she was safe. No amount of money or power could bridge the chasm that now yawned between who he'd become and the brother he once was. In this silent moment, stripped of glory, he was only a boy in a man's armor, longing for redemption. The billionaire's hands shook as he picked up the photograph again, tracing the outline of the girl's smile with his thumb. He remembered the promise he made, "I'll always protect you," and the helplessness when she was taken from him. Every news story, every business victory was an attempt to outrun the failure of that night. He became ruthless because mercy felt like weakness, because love, when it failed, became a wound that never healed. Now, with the world collapsing in around him, the billionaire's mask of confidence shattered, leaving only a desperate longing for forgiveness. In that lonely office, the silence pressed down heavier than any boardroom verdict. He stared at the city below, his reflection fractured by tears, realizing that every battle he'd fought was not against rivals, but against the memory of a lost promise. The world knew him as a titan, but the mirror saw only a broken brother, haunted by what he couldn't save. Far below the glittering skyline, in a forgotten neighborhood, a little girl's laughter echoed through the billionaire's memory. He remembered the night she disappeared, the sirens, the chaos, the way he'd screamed her name into the darkness. That night forged the man he would become, sealing away innocence and turning love into armor. Now, as dawn crept into the room, the billionaire faced the terrible paradox. His strength was built on loss, his empire founded on absence. The world would never know the cost. Alone in his glass tower, he pressed the photograph to his chest and wept silently for the sister he couldn't save, for the brother he could never be again. Power had given him everything, except the one thing he'd sworn to protect. In the silence, his sobs were the only sound, raw and real, marking the true beginning of the story. The cold open had ended. Now, the reckoning could begin. The story's heart was not the empire, but the wound that shaped it. Years earlier, a young boy sat on a cracked bench outside a rundown grocery store, clutching a tattered backpack. He watched his mother plead with a manager for a job, her voice trembling with desperation and pride. The boy's small hands clenched tightly. He swore he would never be powerless like this. His eyes, wide and fearful, burned with a quiet determination to change their fate. In that moment, the seeds of his ruthless ambition took root. Every setback, every whispered insult, only fueled his fire. He vowed to build a fortress of power where no one could ever break him again. Yet beneath the growing armor, the boy carried a fragile heart scarred by shame and love, a heart that would drive him to unimaginable heights and devastating lows. Time passed, and the boy transformed into a young man with eyes hardened by experience. He stood outside a gleaming skyscraper, clutching a thin portfolio, nerves hidden beneath a tailored blazer. His first pitch to a boardroom full of strangers was a battlefield. Each skeptical glance, each whispered doubt, was a test of his resolve. He recalled his mother's sacrifices and the boy he once was, the one who promised never to be weak. With clenched fists and a voice steady despite his racing heart, he delivered his vision. The young man knew that success here was more than a business deal. It was proof that he had escaped the shadows of his past. Yet, behind every smile was a flicker of fear. What if he failed the promise to protect the one he loved? Success came at a steep price. The young man's calendar filled with sleepless nights, missed birthdays, and empty celebrations. Friends drifted away. Lovers turned cold when ambition eclipsed affection. He threw himself into deals, mergers, and acquisitions, each victory hollow but necessary. His empire grew, but so did the cost to his soul. In the silence of his penthouse, surrounded by luxury, he often felt unbearably alone. The boy who had promised to protect was now a man who feared losing himself. He glanced at a faded photograph on his desk, a reminder of innocence lost and a family torn apart. The deeper he climbed, the farther away he seemed from the person he once was, and the sister he hoped was still out there, waiting. Meanwhile, in a different part of the city, a young woman fought her own battles. She stood before a glass boardroom, arms crossed, eyes fierce with resolve. At 30, she was a formidable CEO in her own right, battling against industry giants with grit and ingenuity. She'd carved a path through skepticism and bias, turning setbacks into strength. Yet, beneath her steely exterior lay a burning question: who was the brother she never knew? Her success was her armor, but in quiet moments, a flicker of longing surfaced. She wondered if the ruthless man dominating headlines was the sibling she'd lost to time and secrets. Their rivalry was not just business, it was fate's cruel irony, setting two halves against each other without knowledge or choice. Their worlds collided when whispers of a fierce competitor shook the industry. The billionaire heard the name of a rival who matched him move for move, strategy for strategy. The young woman had risen through ranks, fueled by the same fire that burned in his veins, a fire born of loss and defiance. Neither knew their shared bloodline, only the intensity of the battle unfolding. As the news spread, a fragile hope stirred beneath the surface of bitterness. Could this rival be the sister lost long ago? A family torn apart by time and ambition, now bound by fate in a ruthless dance of power. The stakes were no longer just business, they were personal. And the story was only beginning. The billionaire's journey into power began in a cramped startup office, where ambition clashed with exhaustion. He pored over spreadsheets and business plans, eyes bloodshot from countless sleepless nights. His phone buzzed incessantly, calls from investors, demands from partners, veiled threats from competitors. He sacrificed celebrations and personal connections, knowing every lost moment was a step closer to the empire he envisioned. At 25, he pitched his first major takeover with nerves steeled by years of hardship. Success tasted bitter. He won, but his closest friend turned away, unable to keep pace with his relentless drive. Behind closed doors, loneliness gnawed at him. The empire was rising, but so was the cost to his soul. The boy who vowed to protect was now a man losing pieces of himself with every ruthless deal. He learned quickly that power demanded sacrifices no one warned him about. Birthday candles went unlit, phone calls from loved ones unanswered. Each victory in boardrooms felt like a hollow echo, reverberating through empty hotel rooms and solitary dinners. His empire expanded, but the connections that once grounded him frayed and snapped. Friends became distant memories, lovers grew cold, and the man behind the ruthless CEO mask grew isolated. He held tight to a tattered photograph on his desk, the only reminder of a childhood he abandoned. In quiet moments, doubts crept in, gnawing at his resolve. Could he succeed without losing himself completely? The answer was buried deep beneath ambition's relentless march. Despite the cost, he kept pushing, fueled by the memory of his sister's laughter and the promise to keep her safe. Sleepless nights blended into early mornings as he navigated hostile takeovers and boardroom wars. His reputation as a ruthless negotiator grew. Adversaries learned to fear his icy stare and strategic mind. Yet beneath the sharp suits and polished veneer, the billionaire wrestled with loneliness and regret. His success was a fortress, but inside, he was a boy haunted by absence. Every deal closed felt like a step away from redemption, but closer to the truth he dared not face. Power could never replace family. The empire grew, but so did the void that no wealth could fill. Meanwhile, the young woman sharpened her own edge in a male-dominated industry, battling bias and breaking ceilings. Her rise was marked by grit and fierce intellect, each victory a strike against doubt and prejudice. She bore the scars of a hard-fought path, yet pride shone in her eyes as she led her team through relentless challenges. Her success was both shield and sword, protecting a secret yearning for connection. She had no illusions about the price of power, she had paid it in full. Yet, the question lingered. Was the ruthless man she competed against the brother she lost? Their rivalry, fueled by ambition, masked a deeper, unspoken bond. The battlefield was set. Only time would reveal the cost of their war. As the billionaire climbed higher, the stakes soared. Deals turned into battles, alliances fractured under pressure, and the relentless pursuit of dominance left scars visible only in stolen moments of solitude. Each victory hardened his heart, but the memory of his sister was a soft ache beneath the armor. He grappled with the paradox of his life, a ruthless CEO in public, a broken brother in private. The empire's summit was within reach, but the summit was lonely. He stood on the edge of power and ruin, unaware that his fiercest rival, the sister he never knew, was closing in from the other side. Their destinies intertwined in a deadly dance, where winning meant more than business. It meant facing the past and an uncertain future. The ground shifted beneath the billionaire's feet when the truth emerged. Late one stormy evening, a confidential file appeared on his desk, marked "Family Secrets." Hesitation curled in his gut as he opened it. Inside were documents proving the business was never solely his. His co-founder, someone he had trusted implicitly, was revealed to be his long-lost sibling. The revelation shattered the carefully constructed empire and twisted the narrative he had believed. This sibling, the rival he sought to defeat, was not just an adversary but blood. The walls of his fortress cracked, and memories flooded back, lost childhood, promises broken, and a sister he'd never truly known. The empire was a fragile illusion, built on secrets and betrayals. The shock echoed in his mind like thunder. He whispered, "No, this can't be real." The collision of past and present demanded reckoning, and his world would never be the same. The billionaire's heart pounded as he pieced together the hidden past, how their parents' secrets, betrayals, and desperate choices had torn the family apart. The sibling he sought was alive and fiercely competitive, hidden behind a corporate veil. Their shared bloodline redefined their rivalry, turning business battles into personal wars. The man grappled with a wave of disbelief and anger, but beneath it lay a fragile hope. Could they still be family? The revelation blurred lines of loyalty and ambition, forcing him to question everything he fought for. Every ruthless move now carried the weight of a fractured family legacy. The empire was more than money. It was a broken story of love, loss, and unexpected reunion. The billionaire faced a choice: continue the war or seek redemption in the ruins. Meanwhile, across town, the young woman CEO sensed a shift in the winds. Rumors of the billionaire's unraveling whispered through the industry, mixing with the shock of their shared secret. Her own world trembled as she struggled to reconcile ambition with newfound family ties. She remembered the night spent fighting alone, the moments she had dreamed of a brother who might understand her. Now, she faced the man she had battled relentlessly, and the fragile possibility of connection threatened to unravel years of guarded pride. Their rivalry had been a shield, but now, the true battle was for their shared past and uncertain future. The revelation blurred the lines between foe and family, setting the stage for confrontation and fragile reconciliation. In a tense boardroom meeting, the billionaire faced his inner circle, their faces a mix of shock and doubt as he revealed the family secret. The room's energy shifted, alliances trembled. Questions flew like arrows. Could the empire survive this revelation? Could the ruthless CEO separate personal pain from business demands? As murmurs swelled, he declared a decision to confront the sibling, no longer a rival, but a family fractured by time and ambition. His voice was steady but heavy, with the weight of loss and hope. The boardroom became the crucible where empire and family collided, where the next moves would define not only power, but the possibility of forgiveness or destruction. The billionaire's confrontation with his sister was a moment suspended in time, a boardroom turned battlefield of emotions. She entered with fierce eyes, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit that mirrored his own. Neither spoke immediately, their history hung heavy in the air. Words were weapons and shields as they navigated the fragile terrain of family wounds and business rivalries. The revelation forced them to face the past's shadow and the fragile hope of reunion. Neither was sure what lay ahead, war or reconciliation, but the truth had shattered illusions. The ruthless CEO and the tenacious sister stood face to face, the weight of years lost pressing down, knowing the story was far from over. The boardroom was silent, every eye fixed on the billionaire as he rose to speak. His voice calm but resolute, cut through the tension like a blade. "Today we face more than corporate rivalry," he said, eyes locked on his sister across the table. "We face a choice, destruction or unity." His words echoed, heavy with years of pain and hope. The room held its breath as he laid bare his vision, an empire rebuilt not on power alone but on fractured family bonds. He confessed failures, regrets, and the need to heal wounds long ignored. This speech was more than strategy. It was a plea for redemption and an invitation to rewrite their shared story. The moment was massive, personal, and irreversible, the summit where empire and family collided. The sister's response was measured, a mix of steel and vulnerability. "Power built on secrets fractures," she said softly, voice steady yet filled with emotion. "But it's not too late to build something new." She recounted her own battles, fighting alone, breaking glass ceilings, surviving betrayals. Her words were a mirror to his past and a beacon for their future. The boardroom, once a battlefield, softened as tentative hope bloomed. They acknowledged their shared pain, the years lost to ambition's blind march. The decision was no longer just business. It was a moral reckoning. The siblings were poised on the edge of a fragile truce, where every word could heal or shatter what remained. Outside the boardroom, tensions simmered among the executive team. Whispers filled the corridors. Some doubted the siblings' ability to coexist. Others saw hope for a new era. The billionaire paced his office, grappling with fear and determination. Could family heal wounds ambition had deepened? The sister prepared for the next corporate battle, knowing this fragile alliance was their only chance. Each knew the stakes, more than market shares, more than profit margins. Their legacy, fractured by secrets and rivalry, depended on the choices made in these tense hours. The empire balanced on a knife's edge, fragile yet full of possibility. This was the cost of power, and the price of reconciliation. In a rare moment away from the public eye, the siblings met quietly in the CEO's private lounge. The atmosphere was heavy with years of unspoken grief and cautious hope. They spoke not as rivals, but as brother and sister, tentatively unpacking the past. Apologies hung between them, fragile and sincere. The ruthless mask softened, revealing vulnerability and longing. In those stolen moments, the possibility of forgiveness flickered. Yet, the world outside waited, demanding strength and decisiveness. Their personal reconciliation was a fragile seed planted amid corporate storms. Whether it would grow or wither depended on the courage they showed now, not just as leaders but as family. The climax came swiftly, a crucial board vote that would determine the empire's future. Tension filled the grand hall as shareholders gathered, whispers thick with speculation. The siblings stood side by side, united but fragile. The billionaire's voice rang out, a call for unity and a new legacy forged from broken pasts. The sister's nod was a quiet vow to protect not just profits but family ties. Votes were cast, decisions sealed. The empire's fate hung in balance, a testament to sacrifice, forgiveness, and the cost of power. As the final tally was announced, silence gave way to cautious applause. The moment was monumental, a summit where everything changed. The siblings' story had taken a turn, but the journey was far from over. The aftermath of the vote brought a fragile peace, but the true cost of their reconciliation was only beginning to unfold. The billionaire sat alone in his vast office, the city lights twinkling below like distant stars, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside him. He had saved the company, yes, but at what price? The walls around him felt less like protection and more like a cage. He reflected on what he'd gained: power, legacy, a sister regained, and what he'd lost: the innocence of youth, the chance to be just a brother. His hand trembled as he reached for the photograph, the same one that had haunted his dreams. In the quiet, he realized that saving an empire was nothing compared to saving himself. Across the city, the sister paced her sleek corner office, the weight of leadership settling heavy on her shoulders. She had fought hard to reach this point, but the fragile truce with her brother was a new challenge. The empire they rebuilt was not only about business, it was about healing old wounds. She stared out at the dawn breaking over the skyline, thoughts swirling like morning mist. Could they truly build something lasting, or were they doomed to repeat the past's mistakes? Her reflection in the glass was sharp, resolute, but her eyes held a flicker of doubt. She whispered to herself, "This is more than power, it's family." And with that, she prepared for the battles yet to come. The siblings began tentative steps toward rebuilding their fractured bond. Meetings were filled with awkward silences and careful words, the ghosts of the past hovering between them. They shared memories and pain, gradually weaving threads of trust from fragile fabric. Their teams watched, skeptical but hopeful, as the once bitter rivals now sought common ground. The process was neither smooth nor swift, but in the cracks of their fractured relationship, something new began to grow. It was a cautious hope, a promise that family could mean more than rivalry, that legacy was more than power. In these moments, the billionaire and his sister glimpsed a future neither had dared to imagine. Yet, the path to healing was lined with setbacks. Old wounds reopened in sharp arguments over business decisions and lingering mistrust. Each clash threatened to unravel the fragile progress they'd made. The siblings wrestled not only with corporate challenges but with the deep emotional scars left by years apart. At times the bitterness threatened to consume them, but they clung to the hope that beneath the pain was a bond worth saving. Every difficult conversation was a test of their resolve to choose family over pride, healing over hurt. In the silence after the storms, they found the strength to continue, knowing that reconciliation was a journey, not a destination. Time passed, and the siblings grew into new roles, not just as EEOs, but as family. The empire they rebuilt bore the marks of sacrifice and renewal. In quiet moments, the billionaire saw a man transformed, not just by power, but by love and forgiveness. The sister, once a fierce rival, became a partner in more than business. Their legacy was no longer a solitary throne, but a shared foundation. The story that began with loss ended in fragile triumph. They understood that true success was not measured in wealth, but in the courage to face the past and choose connection over conquest. Their journey was not finished, but for the first time, it was filled with hope. The final chapter opened with a quiet dawn, the city bathed in soft gold. The billionaire stood before a mirror in his penthouse, the weight of everything reflected back. Years of ambition, loss, and love etched into his features. His eyes, once hardened by power, now held a vulnerable clarity. Behind him, fireworks burst over the skyline, silent colors painting the sky like a fragile celebration. A whispered voice echoed in his mind. He left the company, but never left her. The journey had transformed him from ruthless CEO to a man seeking redemption beyond wealth. The empire still stood, but it was no longer a fortress of solitude. It was a home rebuilt on fragile bonds, hope, and the promise of a future shared. Meanwhile, in a quiet office not far away, the sister sat alone, her fingers tracing the edge of the same faded photograph that had haunted their story. Her expression was softer now, eyes shimmering with a mix of sorrow and hope. The battles had shaped her, but they no longer defined her. She whispered to the empty room, "We've found each other, not just as rivals but as family." Outside, the city stirred awake, the light growing stronger with every heartbeat. The past was a shadow, but the future stretched out bright and uncertain. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe in something beyond power, a connection deeper than ambition. The siblings met once more in a quiet garden hidden above the city, a sanctuary from the relentless pace below. They spoke without words, the silence between them filled with shared memories and unspoken promises. The journey from rivalry to reconciliation had been long and fraught with pain, but in this moment they found peace. The garden's gentle breeze carried away the last traces of bitterness, leaving only the fragile hope that family could heal what ambition had broken. As petals drifted around them, they understood that their story was not about winning or losing. It was about finding each other in the chaos and choosing to stand together. The empire continued, transformed by their shared leadership and renewed vision. The siblings walked the halls of their company, not as rivals but as partners, their bond a quiet strength that inspired those around them. They faced challenges with newfound resilience, grounded by the understanding that power without connection was empty. Each step forward was a testament to the sacrifices made and the love rediscovered. In meetings and decisions, their unity was palpable, a silent promise that family would always come first. The legacy they forged was imperfect, marked by scars and hope, but it was theirs, and it was real. The story closed, not with fanfare, but with quiet strength. A child's small hand reached up to the same boardroom chair once fought over, symbolizing a new beginning. The siblings watched from afar, their eyes meeting with a shared smile. The empire had survived, but more importantly, they had survived each other. Their journey was a testament to the enduring power of family, forgiveness, and hope. As the city lights dimmed and night settled, their story whispered on, a promise that even in the fiercest battles, love could find a way. The end was simply a beginning.